Welcome back, viewers, to the Tobago Updates Morning Show. And we're continuing the conversation with Councillor Tashia Burris, Secretary of the Division of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities and Transportation. And we want to shift gears just a bit, and we want to talk about the new possibilities with the start of the new government in administration.
So I want to say congratulations to the incoming government. You know, I know that the swearing in is taking place on Friday. We have a cabinet in place. We have our prime minister. And, you know, there's excitement in the air. And I think that is for good reason. I think there's an opportunity definitely for Tobago to be able to feel as if we're side by side. And really that there is a government that really is taking care of the needs of the people of Tobago. You would notice that there's no longer a Ministry of Tourism. So tourism has now been married to trade and investment, and culture has now gone back to its previous home with community development. And, you know, some persons ask me, how do I feel that there's no longer a Ministry of Tourism? I said, well, you know, one of the things that I can see as a strategic shift is aligning tourism with trade and investment. Because the reality is that when you have a conversation about tourism, a lot of it centers around how are we encouraging people to invest? How are we investing in tourism? And how are we creating an environment where we are competitive? We weren't really getting that before, because what you would have is, because you have a standalone ministry and then you have a ministry that's responsible for trade and investments, and when you discuss things like the land license that's going to a minister of finance, you recognize that there was a lot of, you know, there were a lot of bureaucracy and there are a lot of gaps, and, you know, so I feel I am cautiously optimistic where this is concerned, because it signals, I think, the government's intention to look at tourism as a serious economic driver and not just align it to culture, not the idea of culture that some people may have, but more event tourism, performing arts, entertainment. That's what people think when they talk culture, but culture is far bigger and broader than that. But taking tourism and aligning it with trade and investment, as I said, signals to me that the government intends to really create a true economic driver out of the tourism sector. And that is where both Tobago and Trinidad have to be on the same page. And certainly sitting in the chair for the last 3.5 years has given me such deep insight as to what is required to help Tobago become more competitive. And a lot of the challenges that we face are not necessarily things that the THA has responsibility for. And I will give you a classic example. We don't have responsibility for the airport. The airport is under the Airports Authority, and the Airports Authority is under a line minister in Trinidad. In the past, that was under the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure. There's now a Ministry of Transport and Civil Aviation. So I would have to see the Gazette to make sure that they're either aligned with that ministry or they're still under Works and Infrastructure. But whatever the situation is, the THA is not responsible for the airport. And even though the 5th schedule of the Tobago House of Assembly Act states that the THA is responsible for airports and seaports, that has never been actioned. Those infrastructure, those assets were never handed over to the Tobago House of Assembly to be the stewards of them on behalf of the people of Tobago. And that's a conversation that we can begin to have. What we have to do on island is to build our capacity, because it's one thing for us to want the responsibilities, another thing for us to be able to handle the responsibility. And that is why one of the things that, again, upcoming, because we are weaving in the conversation and I'm talking about some of the things that we have in the pipeline, because I know a lot of people feel, oh, we're not seeing Tashia, what's going on and stuff. A lot of things are cooking in the tourism, the Division of Tourism kitchen. So we have the DOCAT Scholarship program. And the purpose of this scholarship program is to encourage people to study the areas in the sector that we would need persons to build that capacity for 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the road. And it's not just traditional tourism. We don't want to send people to school to just study hospitality and tourism management. We have a lot of those people around. We want people to study transportation. We want people to study cruise ship. We want people to study statistics and analysis and market research and all of these things that we require, because the sector is not just made up of people who are in the hospitality part of the sector. Transportation is a huge area, and we are hard pressed to find people who are qualified in those areas. So we want, through that scholarship program, to really encourage persons who are in high school and even persons who have come out of school and might be working and thinking, what is a career that I can get involved in? These are some of the areas that we will need people in a short order, because if we're going to be taking up those responsibilities of an airport or for running a port, it requires persons who are qualified. Things like maritime engineering, maritime science, management, where port infrastructure and shipping is concerned. We need persons to get qualified in those areas. A lot of those professionals are from Trinidad, or we'll have to source them outside if we were to put out for vacancies. So we want our people to understand that tourism sector is not just about putting heads in beds and serving drinks and, you know, working front desk and that kind of thing. There are so many careers that are available to persons. So part of that sensitization for when we launch that program, and I have some upcoming visits to high schools. So the idea is to have those personal one-on-one and start to get them thinking deeper about the opportunities that are available in the tourism sector, so that when they're picking their subjects or when they're about to write their exams, even if they had in their mind, look, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an engineer, which are very, very good professions to want to be in, Tobago also has need of a whole list of other areas, and especially where the tourism sector is concerned, and certainly wanting to attract the persons, as I said, who are very passionate about the sector. So for me, there are so many opportunities that are presented with a new government coming into play, and hoping that there's a clean slate so that Tobago could now approach them and say, look, these are the things that we need to be solved for us to be able to really get this thing going. Things like the land license, top of the list. We need to have responsibility for determining who gets to buy land in Tobago. That responsibility by right should not reside with a Minister of Finance in Trinidad, who may not understand, obviously, the nuances of what is happening in Tobago, things like that. Certainly getting the CAL situation corrected. People don't understand that, you know, the most successful tourism destinations who have airlines attached to their product is because that airline and that tourist board are working together, because they're doing the research and they're asking themselves, where are the markets that we need to fly to bring people who want to experience what is here? We've never had that relationship with CAL. So CAL is over here doing whatever CAL is doing, and we're over here doing what we're doing. And CAL's mandate should really be to grow the numbers into the two destinations, Tobago and Trinidad. What is that strategy? We all need to come to the table together. So we need to be on the same page as Visit Trinidad. In Trinidad, CAL also has to be there, and we three have to sit down and craft that tourism airlift strategy, so that CAL is not just picking up and deciding where it wants to fly, because they are more concerned about their bottom line as a company. What they have to do is, yes, you have to be concerned about your bottom line, but at the same time, how are we growing the numbers into the destination? And it's not even just about a numbers conversation, it's a spend conversation. Because when we're talking about tourism's contribution to GDP, again, that's one of those big lofty goals we have to set. Right now, based on the amount of international passengers coming into Tobago, tourism's contribution to GDP, according to the last budget, was somewhere between 12 and 13%. Ideally, tourism's contribution to GDP should be closer to 25% of what we earn into the destination called Tobago, because we have to build those productive sectors as pillars of our economy. The focus can't just be on THA spend. It can't just be about THA employing persons and employing the majority of persons on island. We have to be able to grow the tourism sector to be an economic driver and to be a creator of jobs. The same way how we have to do that for the agricultural sector. Whatever the pillars we decide them to be, could be technology and all, whatever they are, tourism has to get to the place where it's taking up a chunk of persons who are employable, and we must be able to get those persons in the areas that they are passionate about. And as I say, it's not just about front desk operations and making beds. The tourism sector has a wide range of opportunities available. So based on the makeup of the new government, I actually have to cultivate relationships with about 7 line ministers. So that would include the Minister of Trade, Investments and Tourism, the Minister of Community Development and Culture, the Minister of Transportation and Civil Aviation, the Minister of Works and Infrastructure, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Finance. I'm missing one person.
But it's a lot. You
6 or 7, yeah.
A lot of persons.
So there are a lot of persons that certainly I would need to be introduced to, and as soon as things settle down and Parliament has been convened and persons are nicely settled in their offices, we'll be going aggressively to do our courtesy visits and have our first meetings and start to discuss how we can collaborate, because that is the word, collaboration. It's not about shouting across the waters and demanding X, Y, and Z. So I will no longer be on a soapbox somewhere, cussing CAL. I hope I don't have to do that anymore, because I really want a very, very, very cordial relationship going forward, and for people to understand that Tobago plays a very critical role in the country's successful tourism sector. And having for the last 3.5 years advocated strongly on behalf of the destination at regional and international forum, the doors are open for us to step up and take our place among the greats. And when we think about the Caribbean greats in tourism, we think in Jamaica, we think in Bahamas, we think in Cayman Islands, we think in Turks and Caicos, we think in Barbados. Trinidad and Tobago needs to be right up there, and those doors are open for us, and it's for us to walk through. So I am excited. I always love to be able to start with a clean slate. There's no turning back at this point, because there are so many things that are pregnant with potential that just need to be birthed. And I think that with a stronger relationship, a stronger collaboration between the Tobago House of Assembly and central government, where all things Tobago are concerned, we are in the best position to experience exponential growth over the next couple of years. And I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to be part of it at this time. And I want the people of Tobago to understand that we simply need, as I said, to get ready. We cannot let these opportunities come and somebody else come on the island and take advantage of them. We are living here, and we are the ones who have to benefit the most from this thing working. And I want to see our people benefit. And I could tell you, even speaking to young people who are excited about the tourism sector, they have so many ideas. They're full of exciting ideas. And, again, upcoming, we're in conversations with the Division of Finance to launch our business grants and business loans programs specifically geared towards the tourism and creative sectors, because we know traditionally persons and businesses that have been operating in those sectors have found challenges where getting financing is concerned, so we have now said, here what we need to focus on building capacity in those areas. So it's not just about persons who have brick and mortar establishments. So you want to open a guest house, you want to have an Airbnb, you want to open a restaurant or a bar, but the creative sector, all of those persons who drive what we see, the visuals of what this thing is. So the content creators, the influencers, the promoters, the DJs, the people who are in the entertainment sector, how are we getting them to be able to access some financing, to purchase assets, to be able to build their businesses? And this is what that program will seek to address.
So, Secretary, I know you touched on it earlier about the central government's responsibilities impacting our ability to develop our tourism products. And I know earlier, some months ago, weeks ago, you would have stated in the legislature that we're having conversations with airlines, but it's very difficult to get the approvals to come through.
At that time,
Do you think that that's one of the first things that you will tackle?
There's a lot of firsts on that list. We want to put everything at number one, but one of the conversations certainly is how do we make this process easier? How do we streamline this process? Because the thing that we get in licks on from all the other destinations is our ability to be able to be competitive, that ease of doing business. So that I have my counterparts in St. Lucia who just a couple months ago passed some updated tourism investment legislation. Their aim is to, once somebody applies for whatever their relative permits or their requisite permits to do whatever business, and they have their money, they have their documents, that they're supposed to get that license within 14 days. So you're talking about from the day that they make the application to the day that a license arrives in their hand, 14 days, and they've set that as a KPI. And we don't have similar type policies. So that I would have a situation where someone applied for a license to purchase property to be able to build a hotel, and it took him 9 years to get the license.
Wow.
And this is the challenge. This is one of the biggest challenges we have in Tobago. So it's not like if there's a lack of persons who wanting to invest, but because of the lack of that ease of doing business, that turns them off and that turns them away, and they go to other destinations who are ready and they have put infrastructure in place to be ready and to be responsive. So one of the things that we do have to address in terms of being able to grow tourism as one of those economic pillars is our ease of doing business where that area is concerned. We have to make sure that the tourism face that we put on is not just about welcoming you to come and eat and drink and see and explore, but when you want to come and do business, you get the same kind of energy. We want you to bring your documents, we vet them quickly, we pass it through the process, and that we are holding your hand every step of the way, and we give you excellent service. So at the end of your process, you could say, oh, this was so easy. I want my friends to come and invest in Tobago.
Okay,
Yeah?
Secretary, so we have to go for another break.
Okay.
We have to go for another break, but we'll be right back after these messages. So do us a favor, share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back after.